when I talk about using water, it's not just about hydration. There's a lot more to water than just hydration. And so there's basically three things that I started to do when it comes to water. Number one is the quantity. Now, I get asked a lot, how much water should I be drinking? And the answer to that question is that it depends. And depends on what your diet is. It depends on what is it that you're trying to accomplish. Where are you on your journey? Are you just getting started? There's a lot of these different variables. And so let me start out with quantity. And again, it's important for me to say this, that I'm not a doctor. I'm a beer brewer. I think like a beer brewer. And when you ask me things like this, I don't dose because, well, number one, I'm not a doctor, so I can't really tell you what to do, but also because a lot of this is intuitive and you just have to learn your body. You have to learn what your body actually needs. And so if you want to learn more about this stuff, this is a good book. This is Your Body's Many Cries for Water by I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but it's Batman Gillight. I'll probably post that in the description. It's a long name, but anyways, the subtitle of this book is basically, you're not sick, you're thirsty. Okay, don't treat thirst with medication. And so in this book, one of the things that he shares is that minimum, he recommends that you should be drinking at least 2 quarts of water, 2 liters of water. Now, I want to draw a distinction between quantity, quality, and really the use of water in general. And this basically goes back to brewing beer. So I have, this book on water for brewing purposes, and then I have my own book. This is the book that I wrote on brewing beer. And, in my book, basically, I teach basic water. I do have a program for brewers where I teach more advanced water strategies, things that you don't really need to know. I'm just going to share with you here what some of those are. Basically, in my little chapter here on water, there's one thing that I just say here with water. Put it this way, you have all these books on water, H2O is simple, but it's a super complex topic. To break it down, make it simple, I basically pay attention to 2 things. What's good about water? It's minerals and cleanliness. Those are the only 2 things that you need to worry about when it comes to water, is the amount of minerals and the cleanliness. And so again, thinking like a brewer, this is where I started to look at my gut issues. And this was a big epiphany, that I realized that what lives in your gut is probiotics. And these probiotics are things like brewer's yeast. This is what we use to brew beer. That's a probiotic. It makes vitamins for you. Probiotics, basically, that's what they do. They make vitamins for you. They make hormones. They make key nutrients. And they're the same bacteria and yeast that we use to make pretty much all kinds of fermented foods and beverages, things like wine, beer, kombucha, sauerkraut, kimchi, sourdough. All of these things are the same probiotics. They live in our gut. And so for me, when I'm looking into water, okay, when it comes to the quality of water, I realize that I need clean water. Why? Because dirty water can't be used for brewing beer. It affects probiotics. And so to me, it's like, it just makes sense that why would I drink dirty water if I can't brew beer with it? Because if it's going to affect brewer's yeast, which is a probiotic, in the brewing, in the brewery setting, if you will, it's going to do the same thing in your gut. It's going to affect your probiotics, but people don't think about this stuff. I didn't think about this. Again, the only reason why I know about this is because I learned about it from brewing beer, and it just made sense to me that I needed clean water. And the biggest thing that you need to understand about water as far as cleanliness is that if you live in the city, chances are that your water is treated. And I hope that you understand this message. Clean water doesn't need to be treated. Dirty water is what needs to be treated. And I'm not a chemist. I don't know what filters you need for whatever toxic stuff is in your water. All I know is that you need clean water. And the only way that I know of to get clean water, the cleanest source of water is distilled water. Now, this is where things get complex because some people don't understand the use of water. They don't understand the difference between clean water, mineralized water, and all of these other things. And so for me, I basically think of water in 2 ways. Is number 1, I need to have clean water. Number 2, I need that water to be mineralized. Right? It needs to have minerals for conductivity purposes, because water without minerals, you can't use that to digest food. So you need both for digestion. But for me, I think of water in different ways. And so number one, since I'm talking about distilled water, first thing that I like to tell people is that do not buy distilled water at the store, because usually it comes in a plastic jug. And here's the thing that you need to understand about distilled water. Distilled water, which is clean water, is literally pure H2O. And the way that I think of pure H2O, distilled water, clean water, is powerful cleaning water. And in fact, this is the kind of stuff that you would learn, if you were to be into brewing beer, you will learn about that stuff in here, is that clean water, right? Things like distilled water, soft water, water that has very little to no minerals, hardness, that kind of stuff. It's the best water for cleaning purposes, because once you start adding minerals and you start to get what would be considered hard water, that water is not as good for cleaning. And you can kind of notice this depending, if you've moved around and lived in different parts of the country. Like, for example, when I lived in Washington State, west of Seattle in the peninsula, the source of water there is very soft. And I can tell, that the water is soft because when you wash your clothes come out, a little bit softer. You take a shower, it's easier to, rinse off and things like that. Whereas I currently live in Arizona in the Phoenix metro area, and we have really hard water. And I can tell because, when you do laundry, your clothes actually feel a little bit more stiff, right? You take a shower and, your hair just doesn't feel as clean or as soft. Like there's just a lot of more residue from water. And so these are things that I understand and I keep in mind when I'm using water, because it's one thing for me to mineralize my water, which again, I know how to do this because this is what I did brewing beer. I used to make my own water for brewing purposes, and I realized, well, why don't I make my own for mineralizing and, digestive purposes? And so this is where I hope that if you're watching this and you're trying to understand and go through what I teach here, that you understand that there's things that I think are important. They're all important, but unless you have unlimited time and unlimited funds, it's going to be almost impossible to do all the things that I do. And so if you were to ask me, like, what's the important part here? Yes, cleanliness is important, but I think that if you're starting out, what is more important is that you're getting minerals into your diet, right? Cleanliness is something that I don't really deal with until maybe the later parts of phase 2 of my program, or phase 3, where we really need to worry about cleanliness, because that's basically where we're actually dealing with restructuring your gut flora, creating a better environment. I think that it's more important really to mineralize, because this is what's going to help a lot of people really with digestion, which is the first thing that you need to do in order to start to get more energy. Not only are minerals conductive, which allow you to use the energy that your body's already producing, but it's going to start to help you digest food better. But here's the other thing that I don't think people understand. The use of minerals, and I guess the role of minerals in the body, it's a lot more than just digestion. I think of minerals as activators. They literally activate the bacteria that lives in your gut. They activate your body's cleansing mechanism. And this is something that you need to be aware of, because if you have no energy, if you have a hard time either falling or staying asleep, if your hair's falling off, if you're gaining weight nonstop, a lot of this could be that you have a lot of bad bacteria in your gut. And that bad bacteria in your gut, the reason why it's bad bacteria, they produce toxins. Okay, and these are called endotoxins, meaning that they're produced from within you. This is really one of the main reasons why I had a hard time gaining weight no matter what, even if I ate good food. It was because whatever food I was eating was feeding the bad bacteria, which in turn will produce toxins. And all of that toxicity goes all over the body. And so your body basically starts to produce body fat to protect itself from all of this toxic waste. Okay, so follow this, because if you have a lot of body fat, if you are experiencing this where you can't lose weight no matter what, you've tried, diets, shakes, juicing, maybe even starving yourself, whatever it is, a lot of that basically is due to toxic waste in your body. And when you start to drink water and add minerals, you're invariably going to be moving these toxins around, and your body's going to have to flush that out, which means that your filters, like your kidneys, your liver, your gut, these filters are going to be overloaded, and you need to be aware of this, because this is basically what the process is. Essentially, what I like to think is that I was toxic and I needed to detox myself. And that's essentially what the process is. And from the moment that you start adding minerals, you're in a way activating your body's self-cleansing mechanism. And this is basically what's starting to happen. But as you start to remove all of this toxicity out of the body, I like to think that the cleaner your body is, the leaner your body is. So a clean body equals a lean body. A lean body equals a clean body. This is basically how I start to think, because when I'm looking at people's diets and I'm looking at what people are doing, these are the concepts that I hope people are understanding. There's a difference between hydrating, which you're essentially trying to get minerals and electrolytes into the cells of your body, and that's a slightly different process than drinking water for cleaning purposes. Because if you're undertaking a detox, if you're moving toxins around, you need to really up your source of clean water to basically grab onto that toxic waste that's trying to leave your body. And in order for you to do that, it's going to be better if it's not mineralized or hard water. Okay, this is the reason why I have a water distilling machine. But again, this isn't something that you do starting out. This is something that you do down the road when you're cleaning your body and you're actually getting ready to restructure your gut flora, which is the more advanced part of my program that I teach. And it's the reason why I think that focusing on mineralizing and hydrating yourself first is the most important thing. But I hope that you get the this distinction. I'm giving you a big picture overview. I'm compressing, as you can see, books and years of knowledge when it comes to this. But it's basically what I believe is what you need to learn and understand, because once you remove all of that toxic waste, now you're starting to create an environment in your gut for probiotics to actually thrive and for you to be able to digest food. When you're able to digest food, your body's able to produce energy, your body's able to make hormones, your body's able to actually produce vitamins and uptake nutrients.